Hi, I'm Josh Kramer. Welcome to 30 Days of Mindful Movement with Alo Yoga. The theme for this week is mindfulness, and today's class is going to focus on Yin Yoga for the spine. There's going to be a lot of emphasis on the pelvis, the hamstrings, and the spine to really help you deepen into those connective tissues, joints, and muscles. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and leave a comment letting us know how you're going with this 30-day challenge. For this class, you'll need as many props as you can muster up. So grab a bolster, a couple blocks, and if you have a strap or blanket, that'll be great too. I'll meet you back here on your mat. The first pose we're going to begin in is called butterfly pose in Yin, or you might have seen this called bound angle pose or Baddha Konasana. Start in a comfortable seated position, place the soles of the feet together, and start to work the knees down towards the mat. I want you to resist the temptation to draw the knees in towards the center body and think of allowing yourself to find a comfortable position here. When you're ready, working yourself down, start to lift the chest and gently roll the spine forward and down, finding your depth in the posture. Now, this is a short Yin class, and the focus on this session is on the spine. So be less concerned with the hips, the groin, the knees, and focus more on feeling a release, a decompression in the spine. For those of you who might want some modifications here, I'll demonstrate those now. You can grab a block, and if you like, place it lengthwise and rest the soles of the feet on the block, allowing yourself to draw the knees down more gently and towards the mat, finding the depth and the rounding in your spine. If that's uncomfortable for you, the next option is to place a bolster or a blanket underneath the sits bones, especially if you're quite tight in the hips. Find your comfortable depth and allow yourself to quieten down into the posture. Typically, Yin classes are about 60 minutes. So today is a great little taster for you to experience some of the benefits of Yin Yoga. Now, the fundamental difference between Yin and other forms of practice, whether that be Vinyasa flow or Hatha, Yin focuses on the deep connective tissue, the joints, the ligaments, the fascia. It's fundamentally different to a more dynamic an intense version of yoga. And it's complementary. It's not designed to be done in lieu of a more active practice, but it really complements by allowing you to deepen into areas that you might never have experienced before. So as you release into this stretch, I want you to think of becoming mindful that the experience in this Yin class will be different to that of a faster paced Vinyasa or Yang class. Allow yourself to melt down, feeling the spine rounding each vertebrae, decompressing. Draw your awareness to the pelvis, releasing into the hips, the sacrum, Now, Yin can be quite a vulnerable and fragile experience for practitioners. When we allow ourselves to be in a posture for a long amount of time, what we experience is the sensation that can make us feel quite fragile and vulnerable. Our joints become lengthened, the bones stretch apart. We create space in our body, but with that space comes fragility, vulnerability, and that's a good thing. It's good to experience vulnerability from time to time and take assurance in knowing that it will pass and you will return to normal, more mindful, more aware, more relaxed, more receptive. We'll be here for about 1 more minute. Typically, the minimum length of time we will hold a yin stretch for is 3 minutes in order for it to affect the connective tissue and the ligaments, the fascia. And we generally won't hold them for more than 5 minutes. I'll talk a bit more about that as we move through the class, but for now, quieten the body, quieten the mind. If you haven't already, I encourage you to turn the lights down, set the mood, maybe play some music that relaxes you without lyrics, light a candle, whatever it takes for you to get out of your head and into the experience of your body, to become mindfully present. Pause the video, make your room comfortable. When you're ready, start to ease your way out of the stretch, rolling up vertebrae by vertebrae. Gently pull on the ankles, lift the chest through the spine. Straighten the legs out in front. Place the hands alongside the hips. You can ground down into the feet, lift the hips off the mat, and sway side to side in this hammock transition. If you like, you can straighten the legs, feeling a release in the legs, a release in the back. Draw the knees up, windshield wiper them side to side, finding a release before we move into the next posture. The next pose we're going to move into is half butterfly or Asana. So draw the right sole of the foot into the inner thigh of the left leg and straighten the left leg out in front. If you need any modifications here, an option you can take is a block under the right knee, particularly if you feel discomfort in that right hip. If you're quite open, your leg will lie comfortably down on the mat. Another variation you can take is by drawing the foot forward, more towards the knee or even the mid-calf. Take a deep inhale, and on an exhale, melt the chest forward and down, feeling that same release in the spine, this time adding on the hamstring stretch in the left leg. Now the focus today is on the spine, and you have the option to choose where you want to feel the stretch more. If you want to feel a more releasing sensation in the spine, maybe you take a slight bend in the left knee, removing the hamstring out of the equation and focusing on rounding the spine, lengthening the spine. If you want to intensify the hamstring stretch, draw the left kneecap up to engage the quadriceps slightly, and draw the toes back towards the shin. Think of concaving and lengthening the spine so it becomes straight rather than round. You have the option to choose between these variations, and I encourage you to explore that. When you're ready, quieten down. The hamstrings are intimately connected to the spine. Where there is tension in the hamstrings, there is often symptoms in the spine, whether that be back pain, poor posture. So by working the hamstrings, we're able to mindfully correct and improve the alignment of our spine. You might be feeling that same fragility and vulnerability. And I just want to remind you that that's okay. It's not permanent, it's temporary. Yin is an environment perfectly adapted to allow us to experience that vulnerability. For those of us who practice predominantly yang or vinyasa style classes, this will be a new experience for us. And it could be quite uncomfortable for our mind to be quiet for an extended period of time. We'll be here for about 1 more minute. Focus on releasing. As I mentioned before, these long holds allow us to move away from stretching just the muscle and focus on allowing us to work the connective tissue, the joints, the ligaments, the fascia. The intention here is to completely release the muscles so that we're able to work deeper into the pose and receive the benefits of it. One more breath. Gently roll yourself up. Our first transition here will be a Mongoose Twist. Cross your right ankle over your left thigh as if you were coming into Ardha Matsyendrasana. Reach your right hand in front of your right shin. Place your fingertips down and reach your left fingertips back. To intensify the twist, roll yourself over to the left so that your right sits bone comes off the mat, and on an exhale, twist to the left, pressing into your fingertips to allow you to release the spine. The key here is to allow that right sits bone to come off the mat. Exhale, twist. And inhale, release to center. Let's do the opposite side. Straighten the right leg out. Draw the left knee in and up. Cross the left leg over the right thigh. And working into that Mongoose Twist on the opposite side. Reach the left fingertips in front of the left shin and the right fingertips back. Begin your twist as you start to roll onto the outer side of the right hip, allowing the left sits bone to come up. Exhale, twisting to the right. You might feel a nice stretching sensation in the right oblique. One breath. And inhale back through center. Cross the leg over. And let's set ourselves up for half butterfly on the left side. So place the sole of the left foot on the inner thigh of the right side. Straighten the right leg out in front. On an exhale, begin to melt forward, finding the depth of your pose. And this will change the longer we stay in the stretch. Think of constantly readjusting your depth as you ease into the stretch, as your fascia gives and releases. Fascia is a connective tissue that envelopes every bone, every muscle, every ligament of your body. Kind of like a plastic wrap, a shrink wrap. And often we think that we're limited in flexibility due to our muscles, when in reality it's due to the fluctuation of our fascia or the unresponsiveness of our fascia. The fascia is made up of 3 layers or 3 components: cells, tissue, and finally you can think of the third component as a gel. And this gel changes. The fluidity of it, the lubrication of it changes based on acidity in your body, temperature, how much you've worked it. I want you to think about this gel for a moment. This gel is in between every muscle fiber. Where there's fascia, there is this gel. And it acts as a lubricant. If the gel is rigid, you might feel more tightness when entering a stretch. The 2 pieces of muscle, or the gels, won't slide together very easily. When we stay in a stretch for a long period of time, it gives the gel time to slide, and that allows us to deepen into the muscles. So once again, I want you to shift away from thinking of having to stretch our muscles, and think of it as stretching our gel, allowing our gel to settle and to stretch and to slide. Exhale, release deeper into the stretch. We'll be here for 1 more minute. Remember to tailor-make your stretch based on what you need, whether it's a hamstring-based stretch or a spinal decompression. If this is not your first time doing this class, I invite you to mute the audio and enjoy your music. Completely relax. You know the pose. Enjoy it and reap the benefits without having to listen to instruction. Start to ease your way up. And straighten the left leg out. Gently lie yourself down onto your back for a brief shavasana. Take a deep breath in through the nose. Exhale, quieten the body, release the breath. We'll begin to transition into our next posture, Setu Bandha, or supported bridge pose. So take hold of your block, maybe two of them if they're quite thin. Plant the feet on the mat and gently lift your hips up, maybe coming onto the tiptoes as you place the block on the high end, supporting your lower back and sacrum. I encourage you to use two blocks if it feels a bit unsupported here. Mine does, so I'm going to join two blocks together, supporting the sacrum and the sits bones. Resist the temptation to bring it up into the lower back. We want that to release. Gently press the shoulder blades together as you elevate the chest. Draw the chin in towards the chest. And begin to quieten the mind down. Tailor-make the stretch for you. You can inhale and lift the chest to intensify the back bend. If you want even more intensity here, feel free to straighten the legs out, finding a more intense supported bridge pose. If you feel a compression in the low back, then back off. Bring the legs back to a bent knee position. This fragility and vulnerability that we feel in yin postures is what makes yin unique. We wouldn't want to feel vulnerable or fragile in a vinyasa flow class. If we did, that's how we might injure ourselves, and that can be detrimental. In yin, it's the intention. The intention is to take yourself to a place where you feel fragile. Plant the feet on the mat. Gently lift the hips up and remove the blocks out to the side. Slowly lower down vertebrae by vertebrae onto the mat. Raise your feet directly up towards the ceiling. And before we transition more into some of our back bending postures, let's start to bring life to the abdomen. Slowly lower the legs down towards the mat, feeling a slight engagement in the core, in the abs. Protect the low back. Slowly lowering down until your feet rest gently on the mat. When you're ready, roll yourself up like a rag doll and make your way over, lying on your belly with your hands by your side. We'll prep our back to take these new back bending shapes before we move into them. We'll take a Shalabhasana or locust pose to wake up the core, wake up the spine. Place the hands alongside your body or reach them back. Inhale, lift the chest, lift the feet, working the spine, maybe a little pulsing action. 2 breaths here. And exhale, release down. We'll make our way into seal pose. For those of you with a less open back, I encourage you to take Sphinx pose. Place the forearms on the mat, fingers facing forward. Gently gaze forward and create as much of a back bend as you need to enjoy this stretch. If you want to take this into seal pose, start to walk the fingertips forward slightly and straighten the arms. Few variations you're able to take here. The first being how wide or narrow you keep your feet and your hands. For me, it feels better to have the hands out to the side, almost to the corners of the mat, and the feet slightly wider. It prevents me from feeling a compression in the lower spine and helps me to decompress and enjoy this back bend. The second modification is how close your hands are to your body. If you want to deepen the back bend, walk them closer. And the third is your shoulders. You have the option to shrug the shoulders up towards the ears and collapse the chest through, or press the ground away and lift the chest, working into the hands and the forearms. So play around with these modifications until you feel your best variation of the pose. We'll only be here for just over a minute longer. Back bends can be quite challenging for some people, particularly based on the variation we all experience in our skeleton and the spine. Some of us are more naturally open in the spine, and some of us have limitations due to the bones in our body, how each vertebrae is structured. If you feel a compression in the spine versus a stretch, that's an indicator that you should back off and take it a little less deep. Readjust and tailor-make the stretch for you. I want you to think about your glutes. Are they firm or soft? How does it change the sensation of your stretch? There are two types of yoga. There is an aesthetic yoga, where we suit our bodies to particular shapes. And then there is a yoga of sensation or function. We have to ask ourselves, what do we want to feel in our body? What is the purpose of the stretch? And then we tailor-make the stretch to that. So if your intention here is to gently stretch the spine, then make the adjustments needed to do that. On an exhale, slowly lower down onto the forearms, releasing the head to the palms. Place your hands alongside your body and gently press yourself back into child's pose. Knees wide. Send the sits bones down towards the heels. Reach the hands forward. Feel that decompression of the spine after all those back bends. Now, I can only speak for myself, but I'm almost sure that each and every one of you made that transition very slowly, almost as if you're trying to protect yourself. Once again, that is due to the vulnerable nature of these types of stretches. We make that same transition in vinyasa classes all the time, and we do so with vigor. But today your body knows. It knows that it's stretched deeply into different tissues. It's stretched into the joints, the connective tissues, the vertebrae, and it wants to preserve that. When you're ready, start to roll yourself up. We're going to make our way into our final stretch. Saddle pose, or Supta Virasana, reclined hero's pose. For this, you may need a bolster, and I'll demonstrate what that looks like. If you haven't done this pose before, then please observe before you enter it. For those of you who are quite open and are familiar with this pose, make your way to the front of your mat. Begin to sit yourself down in between your calves, finding hero's pose or saddle pose. Actively roll onto the outer edge of your feet. Make sure your knees are comfortable. If there's any discomfort or compression in the knees, then I advise you to sit on a blanket to create height underneath the buttocks. Gently begin to lie yourself down if this is accessible to you. Find a comfortable reclined position. Now I'll talk you through the different variations in this posture. If you're comfortable here, start to quieten the mind and deepen into the stretch. For those of you who have different body types, some of you may find your knees lifting off the mat. If that's comfortable, that's totally fine. Some of you may have your knees out to the side. I want you to be conscious of that. If it feels good and it removes a compressive feeling in the spine, then stick with that. Maybe you experiment with drawing the knees close together. And for those of you who find this pose inaccessible, I invite you to find your bolster and place it behind you. Resist the temptation to place the bolster right in close to the lower back. Create about 12 inches of space between the sacrum and the bolster, and gently and evenly lie yourself down and onto the bolster, creating a little bit of space in the lower back there for it to hang free. Lie the arms alongside the body. Once again, if there is any discomfort in this pose and you feel too fragile, on the verge of injury, please take a variation that suits you. And whether that be straightening the legs out in front, that's what your body needs. Today is about being mindful. Actively stretching the quadriceps, as well as creating a slight back bend in the spine, particularly if you're using a bolster. A lot of the focus today has been on the pelvis and the sacrum. The pelvis is the center of our body. In yoga, it's referred to as hara. Everything else originates out of there. Yin specifically targets the pelvis, the hips, the spine, for that exact reason. As we move further away from the spine and from the pelvis, it becomes of less focus, less concern. We all have variation in our bones, in our skeleton, and there will be some natural variation, particularly in the outer limbs. So if we can focus on our center and work out from there, we're able to correct alignment, find our own true alignment, and become more mindful in our practice. Take 3 more deep, controlled breaths. When you're ready to come out, do so as evenly as possible, placing the forearms on the mat, working your way up onto the arms, the hands. Move any props out of the way. Gently walk yourself forward, and when you're ready, make your way into downward facing dog, straightening out the legs, gently releasing the connective tissue. We've worked deep into the connective tissue around the knees, the thighs, the hips. This will feel really good to release that. When you're ready, slowly lower down into child's pose. And take 2 deep cleansing breaths. you're ready, make your way up into a comfortable kneeling position. Keep the eyes closed and place the palms on your mid-body, resting them on your thighs. Slightly draw the chin in towards the chest, lift the chest, lengthening the back of the spine. Mindfully scan through the body, feeling the sensations of today's practice. It was a short yin class, but the benefits were just as good. Take a deep inhale, fill the lungs. Exhale, release it out. Let's take 2 more mindful breaths together. Inhale. Exhale, release. One more breath. In and out. I thank you for taking part in this mindful yin class with me today. If this is a new addition to your practice, I really hope that you pursue it further and enjoy reaping the benefits of this more restorative style of practice. Namaste.